At 75, legendary rocker Suzi Quatro has finally opened up about a truth she says she kept buried for nearly 5 decades, something that happened behind the scenes of Happy Days that the world was never supposed to know. To millions of fans, Suzi will forever be Leather Tuscadero, the tough-as-nails guitarist who stormed onto the show with real rock and roll attitude. She was confident, fearless, and instantly iconic. But Suzi now admits that while Leather was bold, Suzi herself was dealing with a pressure so intense that she nearly walked away. After her very first week on set, for the first time, she reveals how the producers tried to reshape her image, asking her to soften her rock persona so she would appear more TV-friendly. Suzi says they pushed her to change her clothing, her stage presence, even the way she performed music, something she had never compromised in her entire career. Behind the smiles and applause, Suzi fought a private battle to protect her identity. She describes unexpected conflicts with crew members, shocking arguments over creative control, and moments where she felt completely isolated in a male-dominated environment. According to her, one particular confrontation became so heated that she almost quit the show on the spot. Yet despite all this, Suzi stayed, but only on one condition: she would play Leather her way, without losing who she really was. And now, at 75, she finally reveals the full truth about what really happened on the set of Happy Days, and why she never returned after season 6. When Suzi Quatro first stepped onto the Happy Days set in 1977, she expected a fun, easy, low-pressure guest appearance, nothing more. She was already a global rock phenomenon, selling out tours across Europe and known for her leather jumpsuits, hard-driving bass lines, and unapologetically tough persona. But the moment she walked into the studio in Burbank, she realized that this experience was going to be anything but simple. Producers and writers swarmed around her, excited, but also visibly nervous. They wanted Suzi, but not too much Suzi. They wanted her edge, but only up to the point where it wouldn't overshadow the show's family-friendly tone. And they wanted her charisma as long as it fit neatly within the limits they had already drawn. Suzi remembers that first morning clearly. She was escorted past Henry Winkler's dressing room, where the Fonzie star greeted her warmly. "You're gonna kill it," he told her. His confidence gave her a brief moment of comfort, something she would desperately need. Because as soon as she sat down for her first costume fitting, the tension began. The wardrobe team placed a rack of clothes in front of her: soft sweaters, pastel skirts, and denim outfits that looked nothing like the Suzi Quatro fans knew. When she asked where her iconic leather suit was, one of the executives gently explained that the producers were reconsidering her look. They wanted her to appear less intimidating. They wanted Leather Tuscadero to be approachable, cute, and sweet. Suzi was stunned. She reminded them that they had hired her, a real-life rocker, because of her unique style. "If you want Suzi Quatro," she told them, "you're getting all of me." Not a watered-down version, but the pushback was immediate. They insisted that America might not respond well to her tough persona. They suggested that families watching from the living room might find her too aggressive. That's when Suzi realized the truth. She was walking into a world where every single part of her identity would be challenged. Even during rehearsals, the conflicts continued bubbling to the surface. She noticed that certain members of the creative team were watching her closely, whispering during breaks, questioning how she moved on stage, how she delivered her lines, even how she held her bass guitar. One producer bluntly told her, "Tone it down. We don't need the full rock star here." That was the moment Suzi felt her stomach drop. She wasn't just being asked to act, she was being asked to shrink. And it wasn't only the producers. A few cast members warmed up to her instantly, but others seemed wary. Suzi had broken barriers in the music world, becoming one of the first female rock bassists to achieve major international success. But on Happy Days, she felt the weight of being an outsider. A woman playing an instrument, a woman leading a band, and doing it with confidence. For some people on set, it was a little too much. The pressure reached its peak during a music rehearsal. Suzi picked up her bass and launched into a blistering riff, her signature style. But before she could finish the first verse, a voice barked across the studio, "Stop. That's too strong. We need you to soften it." She put the bass down slowly. "That is my sound," she replied. "That's who Leather is." But the producer shook his head. "Not on this show." The words hit her like a punch. Suzi later admitted she considered walking out right there. She didn't need this job. She didn't need the exposure. She certainly didn't need people trying to tell her who she could and couldn't be. But another part of her, the fighter inside her, refused to back down. So she took a deep breath, stared the producer in the eye, and made a decision that would change everything about her time on Happy Days. She would stay, but only under one condition. She would play Leather to Scudero her way. After Suzi Quatro made it clear she wasn't going to compromise her identity, tension on the Happy Days set rose sharply. Even though Henry Winkler and a few cast members supported her, the producers were divided. Some believed Suzi's raw, unapologetic rock energy would boost ratings. Others feared she would disrupt the show's wholesome, carefully crafted image. And nobody expected Suzi to fight back as fiercely as she did. The real confrontation began on the second week of filming. Suzi was in the middle of rehearsing a song for her upcoming performance, something bold, loud, and unmistakably her. As she worked through the chorus, she felt free for the first time since arriving on set. The crew members watching her cracked smiles. Extras tapped their feet. Even a few writers nodded in approval. But the moment she finished the last note, the studio doors swung open. A senior producer marched inside, face red with irritation. "Stop everything," he snapped. "That is not the direction we agreed on." The entire room fell silent. Suzi lowered her bass, confused. "What direction is that?" she asked calmly. He pointed at her leather outfit, her stance, her attitude, her presence. "This," he said. "You're overpowering the scene. You're intimidating the rest of the cast. This isn't a concert. This is a family comedy." Suzi tightened her jaw. "Then why hire a real rocker to play a rocker?" The producer didn't flinch. "Because we thought you could tone it down." That one sentence was all it took. Suzi stepped forward, refusing to be minimized. Years of fighting for respect in a male-dominated industry had prepared her for this exact moment. She wasn't just defending a role, she was defending every inch of herself. "I'm not turning my passion down," she said sharply. "Not for you, not for anyone. Women like me don't get roles like this. If I'm here, I'm giving it everything." The crew froze. Even the background actors stopped breathing. The producer stared at her, stunned by her defiance. For a moment, it looked like he might fire her on the spot. But then a surprising voice rose from behind him. "Let her play." The room turned and there stood Henry Winkler. The Fonzie actor approached Suzi with calm authority. "This is Leather to Scudero," he said. "She's supposed to be bold. She's supposed to be powerful. That's the whole point. Let her shine." The tension cracked like a thunderstorm. With Henry's support, the rest of the cast stepped forward too. Ron Howard nodded in agreement. Even Tom Bosley, normally quiet and diplomatic, voiced his support for Suzi. They understood that her authenticity wasn't a threat to the show. It was a gift. The producer, now outnumbered, reluctantly backed down. But Suzi could tell he wasn't happy. The next few days were filled with small battles, script changes without warning, reduced lighting during her scenes, even minor props being moved or removed to throw off her blocking. It was subtle, petty, intentional, but Suzi didn't cave. Every time she stepped in front of the camera, she brought her full power. Every note she sang was unapologetic. Every line of dialogue was delivered with confidence. She wasn't just playing Leather. To Scudero, she was redefining her. And then something unexpected happened. Audience feedback came in from early test screenings. The reaction was overwhelming. Fans loved her. Letters began arriving at the studio from viewers asking who the new leather-clad rocker was. Teen girls wrote about how inspiring it was to see a woman on TV who wasn't trying to be sweet or delicate. Young musicians said Suzi made them feel seen. The network executives noticed. Suddenly, the same producer who tried to silence her was now praising her performance in meetings. Writers started expanding her role. Directors gave her more creative freedom. The cast embraced her fully. The fight she had waged, painful as it was now paying off in ways she never imagined. But even though she was winning professionally, behind the scenes something else was happening. Something Suzi kept hidden for decades. because the fame inside the show came with a cost outside the studio. And by the time filming ended, Suzi realized she was facing a pressure far darker than anything the producers had thrown at her. Even as Suzi Quatro's Leather to Scudero became an instant hit with fans, the behind-the-scenes reality was far more complicated. While the cameras captured her confidence, charisma, and unstoppable energy, the weeks and months off-camera told a different story, one that Suzi had never shared publicly until now. The pressure of fame hit her immediately. Suzi recalls that each day on set felt like walking a tightrope. She had to balance being bold enough to captivate audiences, while simultaneously navigating an environment that constantly tried to temper her rock star persona. Every line she delivered, every riff she played, was scrutinized, often by people who didn't understand her career or her music. It wasn't just the producers. Some cast members struggled to adjust to the raw energy she brought, unintentionally leaving her feeling isolated. Adding to the stress was the grueling filming schedule. Happy Days required long hours of shooting, multiple takes, and countless rehearsals. Suzi had to perform her musical numbers perfectly while maintaining character for acting scenes, often without breaks. On some days, she would leave the studio exhausted, her hands sore from playing bass, her voice strained from singing, and her confidence shaken by subtle critiques from the production team. What made it worse was the weight of being a trailblazer. Suzi was not only one of the first women on television to play a genuine rock musician, but she was also representing female musicians everywhere. She felt a responsibility to perform at the highest level, knowing that any mistake could reinforce stereotypes or give critics an excuse to dismiss her. That invisible pressure, she later confessed, was crushing at times. Suzi also struggled with the personal isolation that fame brought. Unlike her co-stars, she wasn't a regular on set for the entire show, and her music career meant she was constantly traveling. Friendships were fleeting, and support systems were limited. She admits that during her first season, she often felt lonely. Despite being surrounded by hundreds of people on set, no one truly saw the toll it was taking on her until years later when she finally opened up about it. Despite all these challenges, Suzi found small moments of triumph that kept her going. The bond she formed with Henry Winkler, who genuinely respected her talent, became a lifeline. Ron Howard, too, offered encouragement behind the scenes, helping her navigate the difficult balance between authenticity and television expectations. And the fans, millions of them writing letters, attending concerts, and praising her portrayal, reminded her that her struggles were worth it. But there were still battles that left a lasting mark. Script rewrites, last-minute changes, and constant questions about whether her character was too edgy made her question if Hollywood was truly ready for someone like her. She recalls nights lying awake in her hotel room, questioning her choices, wondering if her career would survive without compromising herself. Years later, Suzi admitted that if she hadn't held firm, she might have left the show altogether, and the character of Leather to Scudero would never have existed in the iconic form that fans remember today. Standing her ground was not just about the role, it was about staying true to herself, her music, and her identity as an artist. Suzi Quatro's confession isn't about drama or scandal. It's about resilience. It's about the hidden struggles that come with being a woman in a male-dominated industry, the sacrifices made for authenticity, and the courage it takes to claim your space even when everyone is telling you to tone it down. By the end of Suzi Quatro's time on Happy Days, she had become more than just Leather to Scudero the character. She had become a symbol of authenticity, determination, and the struggle to maintain identity in a world that constantly demanded compromise. But even as audiences cheered, ratings soared, and critics praised her, Suzi faced a decision that would define her career. Should she continue on the show, or walk away to preserve herself and her music? The answer wasn't easy. Suzi had built a deep connection with her castmates. Henry Winkler's support was unwavering. Ron Howard had become a close friend, and she genuinely enjoyed performing alongside the ensemble. Fans adored Leather, and letters poured in expressing love, admiration, and gratitude. To leave a role that had cemented her place in television history felt almost impossible. Yet Suzi understood the reality of her position. Every episode of Happy Days brought new compromises, subtle or overt. The producers wanted her to adjust her persona, her wardrobe, even her stage presence. Each tweak, while seemingly minor, chipped away at the very identity she had fought so hard to protect. And as much as she loved Leather Tuscadero, she realized that continuing on the show might eventually force her to lose herself completely. So, with characteristic courage, Suzi made her choice. She would leave Happy Days on her own terms. She would step away from the cameras while she was still in control, while she was still respected, and while she could say, with pride, that she had stayed true to who she was. It was a decision rooted not in fear, but in strength and self-respect, qualities she had displayed in every rehearsal, every musical performance, and every confrontation behind the scenes. Her departure was handled quietly, almost gracefully. Unlike some dramatic exits in Hollywood, Suzi didn't stage a public protest or burn bridges. She simply finished her contract, delivered a few final, unforgettable performances, and walked off the set with her head held high. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew supported her decision, recognizing the immense courage it took to make it. Fans were heartbroken, but Suzi's integrity left a lasting impression. Leather Tuscadero would remain immortalized in pop culture, a testament to Suzi's talent and determination. After leaving the show, Suzi returned fully to her music career, touring internationally and releasing albums that reflected her true artistic vision. She never regretted her time on Happy Days, nor the battles she fought there. In fact, she often spoke about the lessons she learned, the importance of standing up for oneself, the value of authenticity, and the power of pursuing one's passion, even in the face of relentless pressure. Years later, at 75, Suzi Quatro finally shared the full story, the struggles, the conflicts, and the hidden truths that defined her time on Happy Days. It wasn't scandalous or salacious. It was deeply human. It revealed the price of being a trailblazer, the sacrifices made for one's art, and the courage required to leave on one's own terms. Suzi's confession reminds fans that the story of Leather Tuscadero is more than a fictional character on television. It is the story of a woman who refused to be compromised, who fought for her identity, and who, against every expectation, carved a path that was entirely her own. That is the shocking truth and the inspiring legacy that Suzi Quatro reveals at 75.